It's Al. You know me. I'm here in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, USA, and this is week 8 of ModPo 2023. This is a live webcast. This is a live interactive webcast. This is a live interactive webcast with special characters who have just shown up all the way from Montreal, Canada, North America. We have been rejoined by Amber Rose Johnson. Oh. Miss you. But we know that you were doing great things, and we know that it's always a possibility that a modpoer, however beloved, will have to do other things with life.
The great ModPo diaspora, but happy to be making a return to this beloved green table.
We're just so happy to see you. And look at the faces of the TAs in the Zoom. Look at them all. They're like, oh, Amber Rose is back. Okay, so I'm going to introduce everybody in a minute, but I just want to set up some things. We have some people who have arrived, and this is like a great thing. We have we haven't had so many people live in the audience since Edinburgh, and here we are in Philly, and we have 5 people who've joined us. I'm so happy. I'm going to introduce them. Just a few announcements first. Today is Bernadette Day. Today is Bernadette Mayer Day, and I want to acknowledge my dear friend and super talented curator, coordinator of all cool activities, who really cut her teeth. Well, she cut her teeth on this years ago. She's been doing this sort of thing for, a long time. But in the local context, and not local, Lainey Brown handled everything, all the coordination of all the work in Scotland. And so thank you for that. And thank you for heavy on the fast on the heels of that, doing Bernadette Day. So it consists of a Bernadette-ish intrusion upon week 8 by a poet who is revered in week 7 and 9, and also 10. But whatever, that's the way it worked out. October 25th, this is Bernadette Day. And a few Bernadettians will be joining us during the webcast. They will take their place in the audience, and we hope that they'll get a chance to say a few things. And then as the afternoon proceeds, there will be a number of Bernadettians, family members, beloveds, and fellow poets who will come. And they will gather here, and we'll be making some new ModPo videos about Bernadette poems, 3 of them. And those, of course, will be uploaded into ModPo Plus, although that takes a little while because we're sort of backlogged. So at some point, you'll hear me announce we've got these new videos. And then finally, and this is relevant to everybody who's watching today, at 6 p.m. Philadelphia time, we will be having a reading, a Bernadettian reading in honor and in memory of Bernadette, and we hope that you will join us through the magic of YouTube live stream. Okay, so that's what's happening. Oh, we're getting a little delayed on that. That's okay. Okay. So we have a phone number, 610-616-3208, 610-616-3208. Please call us sometime during the next 90 minutes, or actually more like 60, because we'd like to wrap up at the end there, or 65 or 70 minutes, 610-616-3208. We also have a Skype address, ModPo Pen, if you are coming from afar and you don't want to deal with the costs or whatever of dialing directly to the 610 area code. You can Skype ModPo Pen. Either way, you'll be getting to Chris Martin, and we hope that you will call us. YouTube chat. So who is up for that? Amber Rose?
Yes.
Okay. Amber Rose, ARJ. And Kate, are you up to the YouTube chat business, or is that maybe Allie? Well, I just want to make sure it's okay. Let's go with Allie. Kate was giving me a kind of lost in the headlights look, so I just went with Allie. Sorry, Kate. And who? Dave Poplar can handle the forum thread, the special thread. Dave Poplar, okay. And I saw at least 1 or 2 comments in there already. All right, let me introduce folks in our audience. Zach, that's a cue to you, or Elan, or somebody who's dealing with the camera. We have Michelle Bethke, who's here. Michelle, I think Michelle and Bob came from Colorado. Came from Colorado. And that's Bob next to Michelle. How much of a ModPo person is Bob? 0? just along for the ride. So we won't be asking Bob to say things about complicated language poetry. But Michelle, who's been a ModPo activist big time in so many different ways, so great to have you here. Emily Reiners, is it Reiners or Reiner? Reiners has joined us and is only been with ModPo for a week, discovered it, and then started to get the messages saying, hey, if you're in Philly or nearby, come. And here you are. So it's really good to see you. And Laura Lipman is here. And Laura came from Baltimore to hang out today. Okay? And Aidan Hunt, for those people who've been paying attention to the discussion forums this year, have noticed a superstar. I don't know if I think Aiden's not a rookie. I think this might be your second year. No, this is my first year. Aidan Hunt, contender for Rookie of the Year, has done so many things. We actually do have a Rookie of the Year, and it's done so many wonderful things in so many parts of the forums. We honor your participation, and we're so glad that you're here. Yeah, why not? He just said, I just love chatting. So anyway. Laura has the portable mic, and that might be helpful later. We have here J.S. Hello, J.S. And Lainey. And Sophia DeRose. And we can count on one hand the number of times I have just said Sophia without the DeRose.
I think it's once.
Maybe once. Sophia DeRose is here. And as heralded already, Ambrose Johnson is here. So great to see you. And we have Kate here. Hi, Kate. Good afternoon to you. Early afternoon.
Oh, hello.
Hi. And we have Erica Kaufman. Hi, Erica.
Hi.
Good to see you. And Allie Castleman. And
Hi.
Allie is somewhere in the state of New York. And Dave Poplar from Arizona. Do you have a comment on the game last night? Arizona, Philadelphia.
Too soon, Al. Too soon.
Okay, sorry. Hey, if you'd been rooting for the Mets, your pain would have been over a long time ago. Or just say ongoing. And Jason, hello, Jason. Good to see you. Okay, so I think we're going to go for a round of favorite poems in week 8. Let's just collect them. I'll write them down. And then, we'll ask Michelle, who came the furthest, to pick which poem we should talk about. And by then, there might be a caller, 610-616-3208. And here we go. Let us start with Allie, and we'll have Amber Rose on deck. Favorite poem and why?
I'm gonna go with something from ModPo Plus, which is Robert. I never know how to pronounce his last name. Grenier.
Grenier.
Is that the pronunciation?
Yes, Grenier. Mm-hmm.
His sentences.
Wow. Can you describe
which are 500
for our...
little fragments in a box.
Yeah, they're 500 cards in a box that he made or his friends made. And what's the why is that so interesting?
I think this is a really good example of getting a material poetic experience, where chance starts to come in terms of the sequence with which you pull it out of the box. You can also experience this online, and which I'm pretty sure there's a link to somewhere on the ModPo site, and it'll just kind of like randomly, in a random order, bring up different of the fragments of the sentences. And it's just a great exercise in seeing fragments kind of in space and getting the opportunity to co-create around those fragments.
Right. Well said. I'm glad that Grenier is in the conversation. I don't think we've talked much about Grenier over the years here. And I'll just say, as we turn to Amber Rose for another favorite, that Grenier, somewhat older than the other language poets, the language poets of the New York language poets, the Bay Area language poets, and the Washington, D.C. language poets, and some of it morphed to Philadelphia. In fact, a lot of Philadelphia, and then Buffalo. But that generation is a particular generation of people who are in their early 70s now. Bob Grenier is significantly older than them, but was a real mentor in the San Francisco area. And Bob said something that the language poets took to heart as part of their movement, and he said loudly, "I hate speech," which is like all programmatic statements, an exaggeration. But it was a way of saying, to say the least, but it was a way of saying we are not the poets of the 50s. We are not, going to be oral, sonic performance poets. We're not going to be Beats. We're not going to be New American. Actually, we're really interested not so much in speech, but in language, particularly language writing. So this was a really important moment. Okay, Amber Rose Johnson, followed by Dave Poplar. Favorite?
So my favorites from this week, I feel like I will forever be biased. I'm going with Harriet Mullen. There are 2 poems in the main ModPo syllabus, and Any Lit and Sleeping with the Dictionary. It's really hard to choose between the 2. But for today, I'm feeling like Sleeping with the Dictionary. I like the way that she plays with tradition and kind of pushes back on the seriousness of the idea of literary tradition. I also think that it's very hard to be funny in a poem, and Harriet Mullen does that so well. She defamiliarizes language and finds space for pleasure and joy and humor in it, and it's a really fun poem.
Lovely. And you've anticipated Aiden's interest in talking about Sleeping with the Dictionary, and Lainey Brown, who is going to pose a kind of really cool Bernadettian question about Sleeping with the Dictionary a little later in this webcast. So, yay. And is there something else we need to say about Harriet Mullen at the Writers' House? What is that?
Harriet Mullen is going to be one of our fellows this year, and we're so excited.
And also, we, not too long ago, I guess last February, beginning of 2023, we were out there and we met her in the UCLA Botanical Garden and had a marvelous conversation or two with her. It was quite stunning. And she's great. She's a real favorite, and we're very excited. And I wouldn't be surprised, my Montrealer friend, I wouldn't be surprised if we worked up a slow-po on Harriet. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that. Lainey's thinking, oh, God, he's adding more. I've got all kinds of plans. But anyway, okay. We're going to go to Dave Poplar, followed by J.S. Favorite poem.
This week I'm going to pick My Life Had Stood a Loaded Gun by Emily Dickinson. And that's not because I understand it. I'm still working through it. There's so much going on in it. But I just at least recognize how absolutely mind-blowingly innovative this was for the time, how astonishingly different this was, and it just gives it even more of a dramatic feel, understanding how it broke so dramatically with convention.
Dave, thank you so much. And one of the marvelous things about Dickinson's reappearance in week 8 and 10, week 8 because of my Emily Dickinson, Susan Howe, and week 10 because Flarf decides to rewrite Emily Dickinson. So Mike McGee, and we can get to that in week 10. But so we need to explain that the reason why Dickinson reappears is because a language writer or language affiliated writer, Susan Howe, wrote a prose poetic, critical, creative, book-length, close reading of that poem. Dave, would you be willing to read the poem? It is one of the most difficult poems that any of us knows. And then we're going to turn to a phone call, I think. All right, read that poem. Man, it's amazing.
My life had stood a loaded gun. My life had stood a loaded gun in corners till a day the owner passed, identified, and carried me away. And now we roam in sovereign woods, and now we hunt the doe, and every time I speak for him, the mountains straight reply. And do I smile such cordial light upon the valley glow? It is as a Vesuvian face had led its pleasure through. And when at night, our good day done, I guard my master's head. 'Tis better than the elder duck's deep pillow to have shared. To foe of his, I'm deadly foe. None stir the second time. on whom I lay a yellow eye or an emphatic thumb. Though I than he may longer live, he longer must than I, for I have but the power to kill without the power to die.
And there's so many marvelous things about the mystery of that poem. And one is, who is the I? My goodness. Who is the I? Is it the gun? Is it the speaker? Is it somebody watching this guy sleep? What is this I? It's so powerful. Okay, so we're going to turn to whoever's on the phone and then to, what did I say? To JS for a favorite. Chris, who is on the phone?
Yes, one of our favorites, Mandana, is
Mandana.
on the line.
Okay, Mandana, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me, Al?
Absolutely, perfectly so. Mandana, we've been in touch lately, and I so appreciate you.
We've been in touch. I so appreciate you too, Al. You've been quite a comfort, and I really appreciate that very much.
Yes, let's not talk too much more about this because I'm going to cry. So why don't we just?
Yeah, I know that. It's not good for either one of us.
No, we don't want to cry.
So I have to say I don't know if I don't have a favorite poem. Although the Statue of Liberty always speaks to me.
Even though that's not a week 8 poem, but whatever.
No, I know. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. Bernadette's poem. What's it called?
I love it. The tragic.
Look at
the
me.
tragic condition of the Statue of Liberty.
The tragic condition of the Statue of Liberty.
Since it's Bernadette Day, you can say something about it.
Well, if I could first say something about her. So I didn't know Bernadette as well as all of you, but I treasure the conversations I did have with her, and that actually started at Kelly Writer's house. And as a writer, I'm really forever changed by what and how she wrote and how she created spaces for all of us to create, right? With the joy of what language is and it can do. And I have to say, as generous and generative as she was every time I saw her, as incredibly warm as she was, I also just really loved and won't forget her playfulness, her humor, right? And that's kind of part and parcel of who she was. And in a sense, she didn't just write as a poet, she lived as one, if that makes any sense to you, Al.
Yes.
Like she epitomized the poem. She was the poem for me in a lot of ways. Yeah. But the reason why I love the tragic condition of the Statue of Liberty is both the momentum of it and how she starts off in a very kind of ordinary way, right? About what one would want to give for the centenary and all of that. But then it starts to get political. And it gets political in the small p politics of what goes on around there. And then also the larger image of monuments and what do they really mean? And why, in one sense, why do we even spend money for monuments? Why is that important? So within one poem, she expresses what's going on in New York, which is obviously very near and dear to me. She expresses what's going on in New York. She talks about what is missing and what is lacking. And then beautifully at the end, she shares what she can give. And that's the poem itself.
Yes.
And I don't think there's a more perfect poem. But and then finally, just to say that she was generating poetry until the very end of her life, very too brief life, is absolutely beautiful to me.
Yes. Mandana, thank you for calling us in the spirit of Bernadette Day. We so appreciate you.
Thank you.
And
Miss
Bernadette.
You all very much.
All right. I hope you'll watch the reading tonight and be well. So that's Mandana calling from New York City.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye. Love you. 610-616-3208. We are up to JS. And after JS, I wonder if Michelle, who has the mic or could get one, would be willing to add a favorite from this week. So JS?
Yeah, so I really love the language poets, so it's a really difficult choice. But the poem that I keep returning to and lingering in and playing in and working through is Any Lit by Harriet Mullen. And I guess I'm just really, I don't know, am so struck by the amount of work that beyond does as a linking word of creating the expanse between the you words and the me words.
Can you give us 4 or 5 lines?
Yeah, I'll just start from the beginning. You are a ukulele beyond my microphone. You are a Yukon beyond my Micronesia. You are a union beyond my meiosis. You are a unicycle beyond my migration, and so on and so on. And yeah, to me, the invitation of the beyond is the desire to sort of unite the you and me words and make meaning and make sense of them. And also with, the expansive space that a beyond can create, the massive effort of trying to make them meet. And so, yeah, I don't know. It's just a poem that invites, I think, both play and work and grappling with the dictionary.
Well said. Well done. Great choice. We're going to turn to Michelle in a second, but ARJ and Allie, can you tell us what's happening in the chat? Anything worth mentioning and quoting? Not so nice people today?
Yeah, I'm seeing lots of nice people just happy to be in community. Some folks were curious about your mention of a potential slow-po, but I did teach a slow-po on Mullen in April.
That's
so
what
we would
I
have
thought.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Lainey
Sorry,
was
guys.
like, we did that already.
We did that. I'm such an idiot. I don't know. I
No,
can't.
you're the best.
I cannot keep up. I can't keep up.
You're just an idea generator. So
the people there are saying we just had one of these. Or no, they're saying yes, 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 and you're saying
Vijaya just said we don't mind a repetition.
Okay, Vijaya, and anything Vijaya wants, we do, because Vijaya
It can't
is like
be too much
a
Harriet,
superstar.
as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, good.
Correct.
And Harriet's going to be here, so it kind of makes sense, because what month is that, Sophia? April.
I love
All right.
Y'all just know. Y'all be.
Yeah. Okay, keep doing your job. Anything else?
No.
Okay. Allie, anything you want to quote from the chat people?
I think Amber Rose mostly covered it, but
Okay.
it is cool that Aiden Hunt is on the YouTube chat from the room.
Wait, is that what people are saying?
No, I'm sitting here chatting.
Oh, you're
That's right.
Aiden, you are like a
person. I'm neurodivergent, so I
Yeah.
go through the internet.
so
I got my
you're making something of the neurodivergence by doing all kinds of things, and what you're doing is stellar. You figured it out, man. You figured it out.
I do what I can.
Oh,
Get through the day.
just met you today, but already love you. Okay, so let's turn to Michelle and followed by Jason for a favorite poem.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, Zach, how's that? Good? Is it on at least?
Is it on?
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to choose Bernstein's In a Restless World Like This Is. And it's a poem I haven't really looked at in prior years in much depth, but I did this year, and I kind of did a meta reading of the poem. And I kind of feel like the phrase, rocks occasionally break if enough pressure is applied, is like trying to understand the poems we do, but I feel like we don't want to go too far and break the rock or break the poem.
Oh, wow.
Like we need to go only so far before the way back becomes too difficult.
I have been blind to that reading, which is weird because all my readings are meta. And this is the one poem, because of its association with 9/11, that I thought, this is about some external event. But wow, Michelle. I'm going to play the poem. I'm going to play Charles.
Okay.
This was the poem was written soon after in 2001, soon after 9/11, which was obviously September, or maybe early 2002. But then when Charles became a professor here at Penn and joined my department and became a close associate of the Kelly Writers House and co-founder with me of Penn Sound, he gave a reading in our garden. And it was a beautiful evening. And it was soon after the 2-year memorial of 9/11. And he read this poem, and it was you'll hear the recording, the quality of it. It reminds me of that amazing evening, and you could hear a pin drop. So here is Charles in that context.
In a restless world like this is, Not long ago, or maybe I dreamt it or made it up or have suddenly lost track of its train in the hocus pocus of the dissolving days. No, if I bend the turn around the corner, come at it from all three sides at once, or bounce the ball against all manner of bleary-eyed fortune tellers, well, you can see for yourselves there's nothing up my sleeves, or notice even rocks occasionally break if enough pressure is applied. As far as you go in one direction, all the further you'll have to go on before the way back has become totally indivisible.
It's a remarkable poem, and it is a perfect language poem in so many ways, but we'll defer. Maybe at some point we'll talk about it again. We have talked about it in ModPo quite a lot, but thank you, Michelle, so much. Chris, we have someone on the phone, and I would like to find out who that is and then hear from Jason about his favorite, and then we'll go back to the caller. Who is it, Chris?
Yes, we have Kwan on the phone calling from Maryland with a question.
Okay. Hi, Kwan. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Professor Ferris.
Please call me Al. Kwan, we've been interacting a little in the forums. In fact, I saw you post something to the thread for this webcast, and I just want to say I appreciate all your activity in ModPo. Is this your first year with us?
Yes, I'm excited. I really am learning stuff from this.
That's great.
I didn't know your the concept of convene was just so exciting. So, everyone contributes something.
The concept of?
To convene.
To convene.
Convening.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, to convene. That is, I think everybody at the table here agrees. Everybody in the Zoom, I think everybody agrees that we have emerged collectively through the Writers' House and our various projects in coordination with all kinds of poetic communities who've been striving toward this, a concept of pedagogy that is, we don't teach, we don't profess, we convene people to converge upon a text.
Yes.
That's what we do, and that's what.
Because no one has all the answers.
Absolutely not. So, you had a question, it sounds like, Kwan. Do you want to ask it?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm very puzzled by Dave Poplar's remark in the 30-minute video on Mullen's Sleeping with the Dictionary.
Oh.
And here's the question.
First of all, Dave probably does not remember what he said. Can you remind him and us?
Okay. He said, in the poem, let's see if I can find it. I thought I had it here. It's got the persimmon in there.
Well, why don't you ask your question, and that may prompt Dave or us to know what to respond to.
Well, okay, here's the question. The poem says somewhere, you are a huckleberry beyond my persimmon. Right. Now, Dave knew, I don't know how he knew that this came from a African-American courtship ritual, something like a saying or a ritual. And, I mean, that's pretty esoteric. If I hadn't heard that, I would have missed the whole basis on which the poem, Sleeping with the Dictionary, is predicated. So how did Dave figure that out?
Wow. Okay. Kwan, that is a damn good question. I'm seeing Dave kind of wriggle and squiggle, but what I'm going to ask you to do, I'm going to thank you for the call. And where are you, Maryland?
Yes. Suburb of Washington, D.C.
Do you have a car? Or can you get a train fare? I want you to come up here and meet us.
Oh, yeah. You're on the Amtrak. I can just take the metro.
We are on the Amtrak.
The subway.
Philadelphia. Okay, so maybe we have, this is week 8. We have 2 more webcasts, and then we have a final words webcast. And come to, so we have 3 more. Next Wednesday, the following Wednesday, and then the following Monday, which is the final day of the season. So I hope you'll come up for one of those. So what I'm going to ask you to do is hang up now, and then Dave will answer the question, and then we'll turn to Jason for a favorite poem. How does that sound?
Okay, I'll hang up.
Good.
Thank you.
Good. Hope to see you soon. This
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. This call just makes me happy. It makes me it reminds me of what ModPo does. Okay, Dave, do you have anything you want to say about that?
Yeah, sure. Quan asked this question in the forum for the webcast. I was in the process of at least trying to respond to it when he called, which is kind of funny. I think it's a great question because it raises the whole issue of how much we consider authorial intent and motivation. And for what it's worth, I got that information, the idea that the poem was sort of founded on the syntactical structure of that expression, Huckleberry Beyond My Persimmon, from an interview that Harry Ellen Mullen gave in 1998, or at least a discussion she had with Michael McGee. So
good.
I did find that online, and I'll post that in the forum after Lon's question.
Great.
But
okay.
It does. She does talk about that expression, where she got it, and how she modeled the structure of the poem based on it. And
cool.
Yeah,
that's really great. It's really great.
It raises all sorts of cool questions about the motivation of the author, how much that plays a role, or how much other factors of understanding the surrounding historical or political circumstances that the poem was written at the time make a difference. All that stuff. It's
great.
It's an unanswerable, but it's a super important question to consider.
Great. And just to tie things together, so Mike McGee, who was not currently a Flarf poet, was a Flarf poet, was also a grad student here at the University of Pennsylvania, and wrote a dissertation which was about pragmatism, but it also included a chapter on Harriet Mullen. And so fairly early in the period of Mullen fame, he contacted her and had an interview, and it was, so you got a proto-Flarfist interviewing a language-affiliated poet in Los Angeles. Pretty cool. And they're both in ModPo. Okay, we're going to go with Jason, a favorite poem, followed by Lainey Brown.
It's really hard for me because I really love the John Keane double poem, and I think I may have said
What's
that.
What's it called? Do you remember?
It's right here. Persons and Places.
Yeah, and who are the 2 people?
There is a young student and an kind of who's African American, and a older professor.
And it turns out the older professor is George Santayana, the philosopher, Spanish, and the grad student was W.E.B. Du Bois, who was a student at the time.
Right. And those how those pieces interplay, but how, I mean, the biographies are present, but we also get this double vision of a space, because they're both moving around in the same kind of intellectual physical space.
Yeah.
Around Harvard.
Yeah, it's Harvard Yard.
Yeah, and they're like looking at each other and observing each other.
And kind of interested in each other.
Well,
maybe it's one way. I think Santayana is eyeing the younger Du Bois kind of desirously.
I think so. Yeah.
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 So it's a missed opportunity.
Yeah, it is, but it's a great opportunity for a piece of writing.
Yeah. Oh, love that, Jason. I utterly love it. In fact, I'm writing an essay. I'm assigned. Why are you laughing? I love it.
Good. Okay.
I'm so into it. John Keane was also a Writers House Fellow. We read that book, and also I've taken on the crazy assignment of writing an essay about George Santayana and his relationship with Wallace Stevens, and I've decided the essay is going to because Stevens used to hang around the rooms of George Santayana in the 1890s at the time this thing was set, and I want to start my essay by talking about Du Bois and Santayana. Anyway, I love that so much. We're going to turn to Lainey Brown for a favorite poem. This is really working out well today, the favorite poem thing.
I'm going to have Harriet Mullen in mind more and point out in ModPo Plus some new content from her book Urban Tumbleweed, which I love. These are walking poems. They're her own version of Tonka, and they capture in such a small space these collisions between the human and the more than human world, and living in a city, and questions about economic inequity and private property and cultures in public space colliding in the landscape of LA.
Do you want to quote a few lines from one of them?
Sure.
They're short.
Yes. Purple jacaranda blooms spectacular on branches overhead, underfoot a sticky mess where they land on the sidewalk.
Nice. Okay, I didn't put anybody on deck, so we're going to turn suddenly to Sophia DeRose, and Kate will follow Sophia. What's your favorite right now?
Well, I was going to go with A Mown Lawn by Lydia Davis because I love the wordplay, and I like how there's like making wordplay have such an intense political stake, because wordplay already does have an intense political stake, but you think of a pun as something pleasurable and playful, but it also has the inverse effect as well. But I'm also thinking a lot about chronic meanings, because that's what I discussed this morning in my office hours, and Vijaya and Api and a few others had some really lovely things to say about the poem. So I've been thinking about both of those this week.
Can you say just a contextual introductory word about chronic meanings? Like, what's it about and how is it structured?
Yeah, so I mean, chronic meanings is a pre-elegy, and it's written entirely in sentences that cut themselves off. So none of the sentences actually get to finish themselves. It's also rather long, and you can assume that it kind of is reiterative, but each sentence doesn't actually super connect to the one before it. It plays a lot with what it means to not have enough time to finish something.
Mm-hmm. I'm just going to play a couple of lines from it, from Pen Sound. It's coming. He's slow to get started.
Chronic meanings for Lee Hickman. The single fact is matter. 5 words can say only. Black sky at night, reasonably. I am the irrational residue. Blown up chain link fence. Next morning, stronger than ever. Midnight, the pain is almost.
Midnight, the pain is almost. And what can you do but finish? And then you feel bad about finishing? Mm-hmm. Thank you, Sophia. That was great. And thanks for doing the office hour about it. I think I asked Kate to be next, and and Erica will follow.
I'm going to hearken back to Allie's choice of Bob Grenier and what Al was saying about programmatic language and his statement, I hate speech, and pick one of my personal touchstones, Susan Howe, and my Emily Dickinson, in which she says, whose order is shut inside the structure of a sentence, which I think is a rubric for all of language poetry and all the poems we encounter this week.
Lovely. Fantastic. Can you read the quote again? It's just a sentence.
Whose order is shut inside the structure of a sentence?
And she has an answer in mind. Do you want to... We're not going to be able to talk at length about it, but do you want to get started on what you think Susan Howe's answer to the question is?
Well, she talks a lot about patriarchy being behind our normative grammatical language. And it makes me think just now of Harriet Mullen's, what's the lit poem, the name of it?
Any lit.
Right. And you are the blank to my blank as kind of a not a pat phrase, but a known common phrase in the manner of blank is the new blank, and how her insertion of arbitrary words from the dictionary that come in a particular,
Right.
alphabetical order sort of answers Howe's question there.
Yes. So many of these poets are thinking, what has the dictionary done to us? Or rather, what has the language as organized done to us? And therefore, going back to the dictionary is a bit of a refuge, scrambling things, creating counter-socializations. It's everywhere in this week. This is a really important week for us. It's the point at which the generation we think of as the 60s generation starts to mature intellectually and combine what they learned from modernism with what the new left taught them didn't work about the old left. That's my sort of historical formulation. And then in the 70s and 80s, early 80s, the language poets came to apply what might be thought of as a kind of protest-based Marxism to language, to all the traps and all the imprisonments and all of the harsh socializations. And they all developed this plan very differently, but that's the origin of it. And it's a really interesting thing to study, and it's an interesting thing for people of our generation or the people who are talking today. Think about, it's very easy to say, oh, language, it happened. But it was fundamental divergence. We have someone on the phone, and then I want to ask Erica to put in a favorite poem, and I'm so happy about the favorite poem model starting to basically be the content of Webcast. I think it's a really great way of touring around. Who do we have on the phone, Chris Martin?
We have Sophia Nas calling from California.
Sophia.
Yes.
Hi, Sophia. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh.
Hi, Al. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Sophia. Oh. It's great. We've been in touch a little bit by email, but here you are now. I get to hear your voice. How good. So have you been writing poems lately?
Somewhat. So, yeah, I have.
Do you have your
I write a little bit every day.
Do you have your new book nearby?
I do have my new book nearby.
Can
yes.
you grab it and read a really short poem from it?
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. Here, I will grabbing it right now.
Isn't it great to be a poet and be asked to read a poem when you didn't expect it? Sophia Nas has published some fantastic books of poetry.
Okay, so here it goes. This is from the first poem of my new book, Bark Archipelago. It's called Equi Libris. Read as word is equal in weight to breathe. Read, an angel said, relaying an unwritten message set in stone.
Oh, wow. I love that.
Beautiful.
Sophia, you're so... Can you... Now we'll just sort of make it narcissistically about ModPo. Can you tell us... You've been with ModPo for years. Can you tell us which part of ModPo or which poets have somewhat influenced your own writing?
Gosh.
Dickinson, I know.
Off the top of my head, well, the early ones, Walt Whitman and Lynn Heginian, and recently Divya Victor, so many. Right now I'm rediscovering or reading Ashbery, and
great.
From Your Name Here is I'm reading that again and again. I love it because it
Your
really
Name
conveys...
Here. The book is published in 2000. Yes. Do you have that nearby?
I do.
Would you read the first poem? It's called The Room or This Room.
Yes.
Please.
The room I entered was a dream of this room. Surely all those feet on the sofa were mine. The oval portrait of a dog was me at an early age. Something shimmers. Something is hushed up. We had macaroni for lunch every day except Sunday when a small quail was induced to be served to us. Why do I tell you these things? You're not even here.
That's amazing. It's an elegy for a dear friend of his. Oh wow, Sophia, it's great to hear from you. Do you have a question or comment about week 8, or did you just want to say hi because it's already been very sufficient?
I just wanted to say hi.
Oh, that's great. Lots of love.
It's so great to see everyone. Thank you.
Hope we get to see you either out there or in the East Coast at some point. It would be great. You've been here to the Writer's House. You've done a reading in our studio. You've participated in Webcast. We'd love to have you back sometime.
Thank you, Al.
All right. Be well. That's Sophia Naz calling from well north in Napa, I guess, or somewhere around there. Okay, so we're going to Erica for a favorite poem, and then Lainey is going to introduce the big question of the day.
Larry Eigner.
Eigner, yeah.
I have been really kind of obsessively reading lots and lots of Eigner lately, and the poem I'm particularly interested in for Modpo Plus is Sorry to Turn Silent, which we talked about in my office hours last night, and we were thinking about the poem's relation to language poetry and those 11 tenets that you lay out in your longer introduction.
Oh my God.
Which was a super fun conversation. And then we were looking at space and just the openness of the poem and how you can kind of live inside of the poem.
Wow. You know, I'm going to Penn Sound. There is an Eigner recording. Of course, Larry suffered probably a birth-related injury, and it was hard for him to. He was able to use some fingers on one hand, and he eventually learned how to type. And just an amazing poet, not a poet of disability, but a poet with a disability. And I'm just gonna play one of the poems. It's very difficult to follow, but you'll hear it. This one's called Dying.
Dying, and yet they hunt the white whales, the beauties they see, finally dropping them around the world. What's more, they name them, and these are not tags, but inexpressibles. Their function and even the unwanted, in time to think lower than fears.
Remarkable. There's a new biography of Eigner, brand new, and there's a 4-volume set of the collected poems of Larry Eigner, which is set in courier face so that it looks like typewriting. I highly recommend. It's a lot of money. I see Laura writing it down. I highly recommend the expense. 4 volumes of Larry typing every day, and some of these poems are absolute gems. And he definitely, he lived in Massachusetts for many years. Sid Corman was a supporter of his. There's Sid again. Then Larry made the big move of moving basically on his own out to California, to San Francisco, and the language people sort of really became friends with him. And he's a great figure. Thank you so much, Erica. Okay, Lainey, we're going to turn to you for the big question of the day, which has a Bernadette tilt.
That is correct. So we're going to listen to Harriet Mullen read Sleeping with the Dictionary. But before we do that, I'll say the question. And that is to consider her poem along with any of Bernadette Mayer's writing experiments. For example, take a traditional text like the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. For every noun, replace it with one that is 7th or 9th down from the original one in the dictionary. For instance, the word honesty would be replaced with by honeydew melon. Investigate what happens. Different dictionaries will produce different results. Harriet Mullen said, The dictionary is fun and exciting and stimulating and sexy, or puts you to sleep. So the prompt is really say anything you want about reading in bed or the relation between the generative space opened by Mayer's experiments and Mullen's sleeping with the dictionary.
Wow, so that's a great combo question. So I'm going to play one of the performances by Harriet of Sleeping with the Dictionary on a radio program that Leonard Schwartz hosts, and which is from Penn Sound. And then, since everyone has had one chance to speak, I'm just going to arbitrarily pick 4 people, Lainey.
Sure. We don't have time for everybody, huh? Lightning round.
We could do if
room.
everybody up for a lightning round. We could do the whole room, but
and the YouTube chat.
Okay, but you have to really be fast because that will be the end of the webcast if it doesn't work out that way.
You can say something else
Aiden,
about
you can
it.
say whatever you want.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, good. All right, so here we go. And we also have someone on the phone who's no doubt going to have to do this. Okay, say the prompt again while people are listening.
Say anything about reading in bed or the relation between the generative space open between Mayer's experiments and Mullen's sleeping with the dictionary.
Okay, so I have a roster of everybody, and I'll just call you, tell you when you're on deck, and let's see what happens. All right, here it is.
I beg to dicker with my silver-tongued companion, whose lips are ready to read my shining gloss. A versatile partner, conversant and well-versed in the verbal art, the dictionary is not averse to the solitary habits of the curiously wide-awake reader. In the dark night's insomnia, the book is a stimulating sedative, awakening my tired imagination to the hypnagogic trance of language. Retiring to the canopy of the bedroom, turning on the bedside light, taking the big dictionary to bed, clutching the unabridged bulk heavy with the weight of all the meanings between these covers, smoothing the thin sheets thick with accented syllables, all are exercises in the conscious regimen of dreamers who toss words on their tongues while turning illuminated pages. To go through all these motions and procedures, groping in the dark for an alluring word, is the poet's nocturnal mission. Aroused by myriad possibilities, we try out the most perverse positions in the practice of our nightly act, the penetration of the denotative body of the work. Any exit from the logic of language might be an entry in a symptomatic dictionary. The alphabetical order of this ample block of knowledge might render a dense lexicon of lucid hallucinations. Beside the bed, a pad lies open to record the meandering of migratory words. In the rapid eye movement of the poet's night vision, this dictum can be decoded like the secret acrostic of a lover's name.
You've been listening to...
Wow. Okay.
So good.
So we're going to go around. It's a whip around. I mean, lightning round is an understatement. Whip around. Okay. So Sophia is first, followed by Kate. Sophia?
Okay. Well, I feel like this poem, Sleeping with the Dictionary, can kind of be like reverse engineered to fit so many of Bernadette Mayer's prompts. I wrote a few down. Transform prose into a poetic form. She took the dictionary and transformed it through wordplay and pleasure. Compose an index. I think she did that as well. She another prompt is in a poem, list what you know, and I think that poem does this as well. I think it fits so many of these prompts because so many of these prompts were meant to get you to play and enjoy language in a way that isn't strict or attuned to definition. So
brilliant, so great. Kate, followed by JS.
I'm thinking that by removing words from their conventional syntactic order, you can kind of perform witchy invocations that get at their secret origins and historical, patriarchal meanings and beginnings.
Love it. Thank you. So we're going to turn to JS, followed by Laura Lippman. You're shaking your head, Laura. You can pass if you want, but okay.
I feel like I'm already breaking the rules of the question, but it is about Bernadette Mayer and Harriet Mullen, and it's just to note how much resonance Sleeping with the Dictionary has with the Bernadette Mayer poem that we read last week, the Body Snatchers poem, and where there is also a scene of a dictionary at the end, or a dictionary or encyclopedia is one of the books listed at the end. And yeah, I don't know, just I think, well, actually, this is to bring it back around to the question, but what the experiments do, as Sophia was saying, is sort of force us to play with language and reject this kind of rational, linear, structured approach. And I don't know, I'm just thinking about the lush kind of in-between space of wakedness and sleep as something that more somatically already encourages us to sort of, or yeah, is like a built-in somatic way where the rational is, dissolving away.
All of these comments have been fantastic, Lainey. What a great question. And it makes me think in advance that we can assemble, edit a clip, and this will go beautifully in ModPo Plus. And then, of course, the comment I'm making becomes a meta statement, so yuck. Okay, yuck. Okay. Laura, followed by Aidan Hunt, who's going to say whatever he wants about the poem. Laura?
Two things real quick. I started as a newspaper reporter, and there were definitely two schools among reporters. People who believed, and I was one of these, that you should be able to open a phone book back in the day when there were phone books, pick out anyone's name, and go to that.
Is the mic off?
Sorry, I'll start again.
I think you better start over.
I'll start again. I began as a newspaper reporter, and among newspaper reporters, there were two schools of thought. I belonged to the school of thought that you should be able to pick any name out of the phone book, meet that person, and write a story about them.
Oh,
that
nice.
if you were a really good reporter. So I feel like that fits in with, if you go to the dictionary. One of Bernadette's other ideas, as I understood it, was about the exchange. And when you discussed it in the video, it was the idea of you give someone else your poem and you give up authorship of it. But I was also thinking there's a flip side to that, which is you exchange. So you receive someone's poem and you receive it as it is written. You do not critique it. You do not try to change it. You let it be what it is.
Wow.
Amazing.
Hey, can you come back every week? That's fantastic. You're not a journalist anymore.
No, I'm a novelist now.
You're a novelist, and you're taking a poetry course. That's very cool. It's going to help your novel. Aidan Hunt, Rookie of the Year, followed by Allie.
I just wanted to share something that
Is the
I was
mic
actually...
on, Zach? Okay.
Yeah. I was actually going to post on the discussion forum this morning when I read Sleeping with the Dictionary. I can't say it's my favorite poem because this is definitely my favorite week, and I can't choose, and I still haven't gotten to the last two. But I loved the discussion of Sleeping with the Dictionary because of the ways we're trying to change the way we think about language. And it made me think of her lover as not a man or a woman, but a text.
Yes.
And together, he, in the dictionary, impregnates her minds with these words. And after time, they come out as beautiful, brand new poems.
Yes.
So it's like the dictionary is the father, and she's the mother of her poetry.
Yes, it's conjugal.
I just love that.
It's really
extended
great.
metaphor.
Thank you, Aidan Hunt. That's fantastic. We'll go to Allie with Erica on deck.
Yeah, it's such a great poem and it's such a great reading. At least on the ModPo list of Bernadette Mayer's experiments, the first bullet that comes up is dreams. And I know Bernadette Mayer was so thought about dreams and wrote about dreaming so much, and at the end we just get that kind of movement from waking into sleeping, and I just love thinking about the logic of language. Any exit from the logic of language might be an entry in a symptomatic dictionary. We can also think about the logic of waking life versus the logic of dreams, and how reading the dictionary in bed kind of combines. It prompts you to extend a kind of like freeing yourself from the logic of language into freeing yourself from the logic of like waking sense.
Yeah, really. I mean, Barbara Guest's 20 some of Whitman. We could just make a big list of people. Ron Silliman, the way he just wrote everything, has written everything in a liminal state. And all the drug-taking people, not just of the 50s, but the 1870s in France, all those people thought that we had to find a way to, and, you know, Kerouac's ideas about spontaneous prose, we got to find a way to suppress all the grammatical logics that Howie and also Susan Howian suppress the way that the daytime logics keep you from dreaming in your writing. And I just admire all the people who've been influenced by Bernadette, including someone or maybe several people at this table, and what they produced was given, sorry for the cliche, permission to just say stuff that's liminal and subliminal. We're going to go to Erica, followed by Amber Rose Johnson. And Amber Rose is going to be tasked with not just a lightning round response to this question, but maybe also filling us in on what the folks in YouTube are saying. So we're going to go to Erica first. Hi, Erica.
Hi. I'm thinking about serious play and how important serious play is, both to the way Mullen's work in that particular book, Sleeping with the Dictionary, reads, but also cohesively to Mayer's experiments, like this idea that, you know, there is language is power, but there's also an element where it's important to play with the language, but in a very serious way. So it's not like you're just joking around. You're playing with intention.
And you are influenced by Joan Rotalick on this topic, aren't you? Can you say a little bit?
I sure am, and I'm parroting a phrase that Joan uses a lot.
Yeah. Can you say a little more about Joan's influence on you? Joan is, of course, a Week 9 poet, just to warm everybody up to that.
Wow, that might be hard to do quickly, but I will do my best. So Joan, who I'm excited that we'll be able to talk more about next week, and I'll probably focus my office hours next week on her. Her idea of poethics and her work with John Cage and thinking about things like procedural and chance-based writing has been really important to me. And lurking beneath those kinds of experiments is always the idea that you're doing something that really matters, like that, you know, even if it is a procedurally generated poem, there's something about the poem that feels dire. It has something at stake, and that's the connection that I'm making to the serious play.
Beautiful, wonderful. I mean, poethics, in short, says rather than being further away from leading an ethical life, complex forms are really the only way to lead an ethical life. The forms that defy conventional thinking are truer rather than less true. And she takes a cue from Stein, among others. Thank you, Erica. We're going to go to Amber Rose for an update on the comment feed, and also Amber Rose's thoughts on this, followed by Jason.
Yes, okay. I'm going to maybe sacrifice my thoughts to just share a couple thoughts from the chat, because there's some interesting things being said. So here's a few. Sophia Naz, who we heard from earlier, said something that I saved for later that I don't actually want to say right now. I'll say that later. Lou says, my husband sometimes reads to me from the dictionary in the middle of the night when we both can't sleep. There are so many words that are no longer spoken. We give them some love. Vijaya says, Bernadette Mayer brings her children into the poem, and Harriet brings our childhood in when we start exploring language. Wow. And Miranda followed that up and said, I am now imagining the dictionary as a child that we play with and love and then tuck into bed.
Miranda Jubb, last year's Rookie of the Year. That's great. Thank you so much. Love that. Love you all. You guys are good. Okay, we're going to go to Jason, followed by Dave. Jason, we can't hear you. You must be muted.
It was a language experiment, Al.
Oh, was it? Wait. Do it again. Mute yourself again and do it again. Come on. Do the experiment again. I missed it.
gesture too.
So, as I was saying, I'm really fascinated because in my office hours we have spent time. We looked so closely at Essentials of Spontaneous Prose by Kerouac. We went back and looked at some Stein to compare and contrast, and then but we were really looking at trying to figure out what the instructions were in that Kerouac piece and where language is coming from, and so we've kind of tried to track that onwards, like into the New York school, like, and to what degree is it's like I wonder. Ashbery complicates, I feel like, so much of the stuff that we're saying, in a really exciting way to me. Where is he? Because I think when I was a little kid reading language poetry for the first time, I was like,
how old were you when you were reading language?
I had not yet walked. No.
Oh, come on.
I'm just saying. I remember my first year of college reading some hardcore language poetry. Like,
why was it assigned in a class?
It was assigned, and it was I think it was Charles Bernstein's kind of like business writing poems, like hard economic stuff, and I am just struck by because one thing I was trying to model for the in the office hours was like we've looked at the modernists, but what we're really kind of looking at in the last week, like maybe a collective term, is the postmodernists, and so that's a dangerous phrase to try to keep open and loose. But like what is it about, like, because I don't think we could put I don't think the beats fit into postmodernism, but there's a certain ironic twist where language is never exactly what it seems,
right?
And I'm just seeing how that can spin out in beautiful, positive ways. It can spin out in, into depictions of great tragedy, and it's that question of like, because what would seem to be lost, I guess what I kind of always thought was lost in postmodernism before I thought about it in my office hours was it's not it's a break with the British Romantics thought of poetry as an expression of the interior self.
Right. Exactly.
And all of the poetry that we're looking at is none of it is really some sort of pure expression, like an attempt to use language in a genuine, like, point-to-point continuity expression of like some sort of interiority.
Yes.
Or to even and to do that is to believe, to assert that interiority as its own ideology, but it's doing something like this is so there are so many fun things.
Yeah, I want to turn to Dave, but I really like what you've done there in associating the whole issue of anti-interiority or the rejection of the romantic idea, connecting that to the whole problem of non-denotative, not marching along order. And that's an important connection to make, and it's a very difficult one. a lot of people think, oh, Lynn Haginian's my life. It's about her interior life as she's growing up. No, it's about the sentences that she writes and the language that she overhears. That was great. Thank you. Dave Poplar, followed by Lainey Brown.
So Martin Porter wrote a comment in the discussion forum for this webcast. Part of it says, we seem to look at groups' manifestos, Whitmanian versus Dickinsonian, even jest, language, Flarf, Olapo, but are constraints and boundaries that useful to writing creative and experimental poetry and prose? And thinking about that in the context of the question about Mayer's experiments and Mullen's sleeping with the dictionary, I just think about how, these are all writing constraints we're talking about. The dictionary constrains the meaning of words. Writing prompts constrain how we use them.
Yeah.
And the thing about constraints is when you recognize them, they can actually be kind of freeing because, you think about the expression, think outside the box. But sometimes when you're outside the box, you're just sort of flailing around. When you're inside a box, you have a wall that you could ground yourself and push off of and actually go further, get more speed, do much more innovative things than if you were just sort of flailing around without that. So constraints, I think, in one way can be freeing too.
Constraint is freedom. Yeah, I think that's what Bernadette was all about, finding some concept that would guide her as she did her thing. Lainey Brown, that was what we call a generative question, and it's been great. Do you want to summarize brilliantly as you usually do, or summarize plainly?
I want to connect.
I don't know what I'm saying.
I don't know. But here we go. I want to connect something that Aiden said with something that Erica said. So the erotics of language and serious play are really a through line I see from Stein. And in a lot of poets, Haginian, many ModPo poets, but especially in Bernadette and Harriet's work, it's so erotic, and it's the erotics between humans and it's the erotics of language itself. So that generative space that she opens up and the play is also pleasure, and it's also erotic pleasure, which, this poem is fully loaded, Harriet's poem.
Fully loaded. Yes.
Like the gun.
Yes, it's my life had stood a loaded gun in the dictionary in the bed. Okay, so we're going to do final words. And I think I'd like to organize the final words, to add a constraint to final words, and ask everybody, here we are, week 8 of the 12th season of this 10-week course that just never stops. And I think it might be time to reflect upon what ModPo's poems, ModPo's poets, ModPo's poetry, idea of poetry, or ModPo's idea of teaching, learning, communing, convening around poetry has taught you. And it's probably taught you, everybody who's going to speak, 5 or 6 things, but your constraint is to tell us one thing that it has taught you, and only Bob is exempted from this although Bob might have something to say because Michelle's been sort of deeply, maybe too deeply involved in this life. So
never too deeply. Never
too deeply. Well, from Bob's point of view, it might be too deeply. Anyway, so everybody's going to get around. We're going to start with Allie and be followed by Erica. So tell us, what have you learned from ModPo? One thing, please.
You're never finished learning.
Love it. Okay, Erica.
Learning is a conversation that's collaborative.
Very cool. I didn't put anybody on deck there. Things are going so quickly. So Sophia, followed by Kate.
Okay, well, since this is Bernadette Day, I'd like to point out that Lainey and I were sitting here and we were watching this clock turn back. It was going crazy. It was turning back to.
What
it went back
Zach?
to noon.
It was Bernadette.
We think
it
was
Bernadette.
Bernadette.
Messing with us.
Yeah, I think she was trying to give us more time because her whole thing is finding time.
Yeah.
And I feel like
that was bizarre. What happened?
Feel like what I've learned from ModPo is that finding time is also just making time. So making time to convene and talk with y'all and sit with a poem is the same as finding it, even if Bernadette's messing with the clock and giving it back to us.
Beautiful. Kate is up and JS is on deck.
What I've learned is how bottomless a truly experimental language-centric poem is.
Love that. Okay, so we're going to go to JS, followed by Emily. We need a mic for Emily.
I guess everyone has such pithy little statements, but I think I'm going to contextualize mine a little bit more. I guess I have just found so much joy in this community and this mode of reading. And I know, but I think I'm currently in the midst of writing my dissertation and, have taught any number of undergraduate classes. And I think, I've learned what it is like to have students who choose to be in the classroom when it's completely optional, and how joyous and generative and rewarding that actually is. And yeah, I'm still trying to find ways of incorporating that into my broader pedagogy after ModPo, or, through and beyond ModPo.
What's the first thing you'll do to incorporate?
I'm still thinking on it.
Well, what comes to mind? What would you like to do in the classroom that ModPo is freeing you to do?
Yeah, I guess that even in my office hours, beginning with the favorite poem has been a really generative way of figuring out where we want to start.
Right?
And in a classroom, I primarily don't teach poetry, but asking students to come in and share their favorite moment, because I think we so often don't talk about what we love about the things that we are reading. And that just is often such a great way to launch off into the conversation.
Yay. Fantastic. Okay, we're going to go to Emily, and Chris Martin will be on deck. Oh, you got to turn it on. Zach, is Emily on?
Hello.
Yep,
Okay.
You're good. You just started the course, so what could you possibly have learned?
So much. I think that so far I've been just amazed by the bottomless depths to which you can go thinking about a single word that I would have thought is the most boring word before. On this reading of Sleeping with a Dictionary, what kept on replaying in my mind was the in body of the work, because it could have worked without it. And it's why did she put that in there? And now I'm thinking about that endlessly. So, and that's...
You're hooked.
I never would have thought of the as much as I have now.
You're never going to get out of it. Just stay with us. Thank you.
I'm stuck forever.
Thank you, Emily. Chris Martin, followed by Laura.
I certainly was not prepared for a final.
We in Scotland
thought.
At the end we had a teary drinking session. We talked about how much we've learned, and all you have to do is say one thing, Chris. Unless it was such a haze of alcohol that you can't remember.
The most amazing thing to me is just getting these calls from all over the world into this room and having it all one big conversation. The technology that we get to use and figure out how to put together and cobble together is amazing for this purpose. I love using technology to kind of facilitate a conversation between people thousands of miles apart in real time.
Love it. For once at a university, the tail of technology does not wag the dog of poetry.
Exactly.
The dog of poetry wags the tail of technology, and technology adjusts. That's right. Why are they laughing?
It's just a really funny
It's funny. Yeah. The tail of technology does not wag the dog of poetry. You can write that down. Okay. Okay, great. That's great. And Leanne Brown is here. Holy cow. Hi. So we're going to go. I forgot who was going to be next. Yes.
I'm just going to talk.
Laura's next. I'm sorry. I'm going to set someone up for being on deck. Zach Gardner is on deck.
I came here because it was Bernadette Day. And last week, Leanne said her favorite thing in one word about week 7 was Bernadette. And I think the thing that has been most meaningful to me, first of all, she was the first poet who got me to go to Mod Po Plus. that was
Bernadette, we have a lot of ModPo Plus.
That was
more
I
after
wasn't
today.
intending to ever open that syllabus this first time through. But secondly, it's really meaningful to me as a parent and a writer. Instead of having the interminable conversation about the pram in the hallway, Bernadette just lives and writes in a way that renders that conversation irrelevant.
Amazing.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Laura. Zach Gardner, followed by Jason.
Okay, the prompt is, what have we learned in ModPo?
From ModPo, yeah. That's the prompt.
I've learned how to drive a commercial vehicle on the left side of the road in the UK.
That's your tops? All right, what's your second thing that you've learned? Sorry, you get two because that one was...
I like that one.
That's true.
My second one. I think I've learned how to listen. I think that's what I'll say.
Zachy Dunes. He's our guy. Zachy Dunes. That's his Instagram handle, yeah. Now everybody's all of ModPo is gonna follow him on Instagram, and it'll all be about the Phillies, and so don't get your hopes up. Sorry, I'm being really rude. Okay, who was gonna be next? You're just being silly. Who's gonna be next? Jason, followed by, if he wants, Aiden. Yeah? Yes? Okay. So Jason followed by Aiden.
I guess I've learned that probably especially in my office hours, the more goofy and foolish I am about things, that can give people that I don't have to prove my knowledge, but figure out how to facilitate a space where people will feel free to say the thought that they feel is maybe the craziest.
Yeah.
Then
Love
turns
that.
out to be the most important one.
That's great. And your office hours are fabulously famous. They go on, and everybody loves them, and they love you, and rightly so. I'm going to go to Aiden, followed by Amber Rose Johnson.
Yeah, so I'd say what it taught me most is to read widely, even if you aren't sure you like a poet. I am really not a fan of Whitman's writing, to be honest, the way he writes, but it inspired me to start a long project, a long poem about neurodivergency, and use his Song of Myself as a template. So, and I have another poem that I'm writing that's in conversation with Dickinson's I Dwell in Possibility. So I guess it's just read as widely as you can and learn how poetry evolves.
Great. Thank you, Aiden. Thanks for being with us today. I hope you'll come back.
Thank you.
So Amber Rose Johnson, followed by Leanne Brown, who didn't know that she was going to... You were going to say one thing you've learned from ModPo. Okay.
One thing I've learned from ModPo is that the knowledge you hold is way less interesting than the knowledge you share with others.
Damn. I hope the trip from Montreal just to do this was worth it. Anyway,
It was.
You're the best, Amber Rose. The best. It's just great. It feels so natural to have you back here, as it should. Leanne Brown, followed by Michelle.
What I love is all the new content being added all the time. And when I was listening to the a recording of Bernadette this morning, getting ready for today, and I just was just so appreciative of how ModPo is making these 3D, 4D spaces for the voice to inhabit. We can go be with the poet. It's like this sense around presence. Like I was in the room when that interview was recorded that Charles Bernstein did with Close Listening, but I had never listened to the tape, and it just took me back there, and I heard it in a whole new way. And just that there's something about somebody's voice that just takes you into the presence of the poet and as a full human being with all their present thinking, and I just love that.
That's great. Thank you, Leanne. It's good to see you. We're going to have a great day today. Michelle, followed by Dave Poplar. Michelle, you get some kind of prize for coming the greatest distance.
Furthest
today.
distance.
Yeah.
Well, a couple of things. ModPo is just a very freeing and non-judgmental environment, and that's what I love most about it. It gives everyone the freedom just to say what they think and what they feel. And another very important thing are the connections between the people, but also the
You
connection.
made some really good friends through ModPo.
I have Sharon Wells, who's probably listening
Sharon,
right now.
who
Hi,
you hung
Sharon.
out with, and
way
John.
back in England, and John,
Yeah.
yes, and Mark Jackson. He's another
And
one.
Mark Jackson, who's in the UK.
Yeah, and connections between the poems, because every year that I come back, I'm just finding more and more connections between the poems. And just going back to the two we were just discussing, Sleeping with the Dictionary and Invasion of the Body Snatchers, they're both, to me, showing how the nighttime is the creative time of writing poetry, going to bed and dreaming and thinking. With Bernadette Meyer, the children are in bed, and finally she can become a poet again. She's got her own time to create. And then the dreams, the Alice Notley poem was, for the essay assignment, was kind of about dreaming. And then that made me think about February and the daydream. And it just, the connections just go on and on and on. And that's what I love about finding more and more of them.
Wonderful, Michelle. Thank you again for joining us, and Bob also. We're going to turn to Dave Poplar, followed by Lainey Brown.
So I know we often say in this course, one of the themes of this course is that how something is said is more important than what is being said. And thinking about what this course has taught me, it sort of mirrors that, which is, the process of learning is more important than what is actually being learned.
Yes, well said. Exactly right. Lainey Brown.
Collaboration, friendship, being in the present moment over and over, just the joy of repetition, returning to poems in the present moment with live breathing people and people all over the world is just fantastic.
I want to offer a thought, a heartfelt thought, and then I'm going to say goodbye to some and acknowledge some people who made this webcast one of the best ever. My thought is this: it follows from what people are saying about learning and convening. This is a world right now where everyone is challenged to say where they stand, to say distinctly where they stand on issues that are actually very difficult to understand and are moving fast. And I think we all appreciate the urgency of taking a stand. But every time I think about what that means for me, I think, as extroverted as I am, I'm not really a politician and not really a placard holder. I am an educator. I'm an educator who has decided some years back to share and convene the hard conversations. And I just want to say for myself, and I think for lots of people who are educators, the process of learning, of creating the kind of qualities that have been described, for instance, by Michelle, of open, accepting, tolerant of difference, kind of unbiased. If you have something to say, then you have worth. Or even if you don't have something to say, but you're there, you have worth. And education, to that point, takes a long time. Sometimes you think of it as taking a semester in a course, but I think it takes years and years to establish the kind of community that we have willy-nilly and unintentionally from the start established. And it is a cherished place. It's not a place. It's a cherished set of communities come together through loose ties that occasionally form close ties, but in any case are always characterized by the willingness not so much to take a stand that's definitive and for all time, but to actually learn and move around what such stands are. The least politician-like poet in the whole course, John Ashbery, always thought of himself as just walking around. And that's what we should be doing. We should be walking around the hardest problems that are facing us. And that way lies not just the pleasure you get at the end of that poem, just walking around, you know, the segments of the orange, the segments of the journey, but also, in that, as in the case of that poem, being in the room with the person that you love. So 3 cheers for this kind of amorphous, messy, keep adding stuff. Don't even look into Modpo Plus and say, oh, what am I going to do? I'm going to fall into an abyss. Kids, just keep doing it. Keep doing it more and more. And as long as we're all standing and the microphones still work, we're just going to keep talking. And it's through talking that people come together across differences. Mandana, Kwan, Sophia Naz, thank you for calling. Thank you, everyone who's fooling around in the YouTube chat. Thank you, Amber Rose. They're not fooling around. They're just talking. Amber Rose Johnson for coming all this way just to hang out with us today. We miss you. And there's some stirrings about where next October we will travel. And somebody said the word Montreal recently.
Montreal recently.
Yes, and Chris and Zach, I can't tell from their expression. Poker face? I mean, they wanted Dublin, Stockholm.
I think Zach said Canada.
Yeah.
Okay.
Montreal would be great.
Okay, would you host us? Would you hang?
Of course.
Okay, we could do stuff.
I would make it a party.
We could do stuff at McGill.
Totally.
Okay,
Totally.
this has been decided now. Okay,
Yeah.
we're going to
Fantastic.
Montreal, and we want everybody to join us. Okay, thank you, Amber Rose. You are absolutely the best. Lainey, thank you for Bernadette Day, for making it happen, for caring about it. And I just want to remind everybody that at 6 p.m. Philadelphia time, we're going to be in this room, but you can also check it out by the live stream. And I posted it in the Daily Mail, the Daily Message, but you can also go to the Kelly Writers House website and click on calendar, and you can find a link to our YouTube stream. So thanks, Michelle and Bob. Emily, welcome to the club. Laura and Aiden, so good to have you here. I hope this will be the first of many visits. Thank you all. This has been a spectacular Week 8 webcast, and we'll see you tonight at 6 p.m. and also through Week 9. Bye-bye, everybody.